Magic is such an amazing game, but it's also quite complicated, and especially playing limited can take a lot of time. Therefore, I'm starting a new series. At the beginning of the week, I'll be posting an interesting and intense game of limited, and at the end of the week you'll be able to see the whole draft that this game was part of. This first game that we're starting out is a really intense one, so enjoy. We're playing a red-black vampires deck, which is quite very aggressive. We have quite a bit of good removal. You're gonna see the deck list of every deck that I play like this in the description of the video, so check the description if you want to see what exactly we're playing with now. We're playing against an opponent who's playing black and white deck, and he's got some really powerful cards that you're gonna see in a moment. We're starting out with probably the best red 1-drop in Voldaren Epicure, which immediately gives us a blood token that we'll be able to use later on. That's a recurring theme in this deck. We have a lot of generation of blood tokens, which helps us to prevent flooding in late game. Plus we have a pretty cool black rare in the Falcon Rat Forebear. Yeah, there it is. We get to see the bomb that our opponent plays in the deck, and I think this game was like already 5 on the 4th or 5th win in the platinum rank, as you can see. And playing a turn 3 wedding invitation, you know the game's not going to be easy. Like, we immediately get stopped by his already 2-drop, the guy that has a double strike, which is basically the perfect counter to whatever we're playing right now. And turn 3 wedding announcement is usually game over for a lot of decks because it's just too much advantage. You get some early creatures, and later you just get an anthem effect for everything for the rest of the game. And black red, it's really hard for us to deal with enchantments, right? But I think we're doing pretty well. We're just trying to basically trade off the early creatures if he will want to, because we really want to clean his board off before the announcement flips into an anthem, right? Unfortunately, that's exactly what the opponent wants to do, so he's not really willing to do it. So our second plan is that we're just trying to push damage as much as we can in the early game and hopefully get through in the air with flyers like with the Forebear, or with stuff that has menace, or we have some reach that you will see later on in the deck. Now the game is going in a way that we really didn't want it to, because we're already kind of clogging up the board. Opponent has flipped the enchantment into an anthem effect, and it's getting harder and harder for us to push through the board, right? The Epicure does not get through the board at all. The guest can trade for a token, get maybe one blood counter, but we're trading a whole card for basically less than 1/3 of a card. So we're just trying to kind of stabilize the board in any way we can by sticking any bigger creature, and we're using all the token generation that we have, like the blood tokens, to try to cycle for our deck until we find something of relevance. This Bleed Dry is going to be useful because we can then just exile one of his disturbed creatures, like preferably these guys with double strike, because if this trades for something, first of all, because he has double strike, it's amazing if he has any kind of combat tricks, right? And even if we do manage to kill it, he can just enchant it or something else and give that thing double strike. So that's going to be really a key part of the late game. Plus we have this Forebear, which with all the token generation that we have, we can just keep replaying that from the graveyard, and it can't attack, it can block, but it can be just like a free 1 attacker that can equip the dagger, which will generate us 2 blood tokens every turn, which we can use to our advantage in some way, right? Opponent seems to have a really solid deck with a lot of good creatures and a good interaction. So for us right now, the main point is that we're kind of stabilizing on life, like not to let us get too low on life, because we can then just swing all right, and it limits us and our options too much. Like, it's still kind of a race, and we're still not sure who exactly is the beatdown, but it looks like we're gonna be more of a controlling player in this game. The fact that we have this Forebear that we can just keep getting back from the graveyard, and it's a flyer, which is hard for our opponent to deal with, means that we have some kind of a pressure on him, right? Plus this Raconteur is going to do a surprising amount of damage just by pinging him whenever we cast a non-creature spell. As we can see, he has quite a bit of removal that he's using, but as long as he's using that on the forebearer, we can just keep getting back. That's great for us. Like, we don't want him to use it on our werewolf that can flip and then deal even more damage. So he plays a creature that whenever it attacks, taps down a creature, right? So we already have only one creature that can block. And the reason that we kept Bleed Drive was so we can now get rid of the disturbed creature, plus we had to exile it, so he cannot even enchant something else to give something else double strike like the infantry. With a Sure Strike in our hand, we know that the Ravager will deal 2 damage whenever we cast a non-creature spell, right? So opponent is basically on 10. If we play the Sure Strike on it and it's unblocked, we deal 7 by itself, so that's already like 9 damage. Now that we got the Rending Flame, it deals an additional 2 damage to the player if he targets a spirit, which he has the infantry and the Geist, right? So if we just kill one of those two with that, that's a guaranteed 2 damage plus 2 damage from the Ravager. Of course, in this case, we didn't have any bad attacks, right? If he just jumped, it would be great for us. If he blocks with 3 of creatures like he did now, or even with all of them, that's basically the best possible outcome that we could have. Because we just get to use 1 card, our combo trick, to trade off for 3 creatures on the board. And we still have the Rending Flame for his last card, which is very conveniently a spirit as well. So we know that we have 4 damage for sure in hand, right? I mean 2 damage from the Rending Flame and 2 damage from the Raconteur if we manage to flip it back to night side. Opponent is being able to top deck really efficiently, considering that he doesn't have any card draw or any deck manipulation. So the fact that he was able to play even more creatures after losing most of the board is kind of impressive. But he's very much on the back foot. He has already only 10 lives left. He knows that we have this Raconteur that is just gonna ping him even more. Could be that this was like really the turning point of the game when he didn't block it, taking 3 damage, going down to 7. Because now we know that when we flip it, which he can't prevent us from doing, we can deal 4 damage, right? We can just cast Rending Flame on a spirit and deal 4 damage because we get also trigger from the Ravager. So we know that our opponent is on 3 lives. And okay, sure, he can get 1 life back from the for the panicked bystander, right? Because 1 creature will die, he gains 1 life back. But he also can't just not block this creature, which means that he will need to jump it, or if he blocks with both, we kill 1 and we eat the other one. So he knows that we have a card already for a while in our hand, so it's going to be hard for him to double block, because he was already blown out by a trick before when we had a Short Strike. And I would imagine he must be a bit paranoid that we have something else in our hand, right? So he just blocks with the spirit because he could eventually get it back anyway, and he could put it like on the bat and like tap down the blocker if needed. But it does cost 5 to enchant it on something, and he's pretty sure, I would say, in this situation that we have some kind of a combo trick in hand, maybe a removal spell. So if he does try to equip it on something and we remove the creature in response, he's using his whole turn and not doing anything with that, which is going to be a huge blowout, and would probably just immediately lose him the game. So he focuses more on trying to develop the board a bit more, trying to get in with the flyer, which I think is a really good idea, because he knows he's on the back foot. He can't let us just keep drawing cards, especially because we have so much blood token generation. So we will find something to finish the game sooner or later, right? So he needs to deal some damage to us. But unfortunately, he attacks with both creatures, leaving himself open to any removal spell. So even if we didn't have the Rending Flame, if we drew something else, which we were pretty likely to do because we had quite a few spells that could interact with his board, the fact that he did not leave at least 2 blockers back just sealed the game. Like, we deal 2 damage from the Ravager. We did not kill the Spirit with that spell, but the fact that we deal 2 with that and we have 7 on board was good enough. For a good measure, we drew an Abrade to kill another creature, and we will ender 2 damage with the Ravager, but this was the end of the game. All in all, it was a really good draft, and you'll love to see the whole one when you see it on Friday.